This is the NFL on NBC with host Greg Gumbel and co-host Ahmad Rashad.
Foxborough is the scene for the game of the day. The NFL's two hottest teams, Denver and New England. The Broncos own football's best record, while the Patriots have won 7 of their last 8. John Elway still searching for his first Super Bowl victory. His Denver Broncos just might have the tools to do it this year. Today, he'll face the AFC's highest-scoring team, led by the league's hottest quarterback, Drew Bledsoe. Like Elway, he has plenty of weapons in his arsenal. In the second half of our doubleheader, Miami at 5-5 plays a key game against another playoff hopeful, the 6-4 Houston Oilers. Dan Marino back on track last week against the Colts with 3 touchdown passes as the Dolphins scored 37. For Houston, running back Eddie George is on pace for over 1,400 yards. Right now, he's the league's best rookie. Our other late game is San Francisco hosting Baltimore. The Niners look to rebound from the loss to Dallas, but they'll have to do it without Steve Young. Hi, everyone. Greg Gumbel along with Mike Ditka, Joe Gibbs, Cris Collinsworth. Ahmad joins us shortly. Have we come to a showdown weekend here in the NFL?
We have, and you talk about some great football. Think about it. All across the league, we got Pats, Denver, Houston, Miami, Green Bay, Dallas, Washington, Philly. All those teams trying to take a step up.
Just reels those things off, doesn't he?
Well, I'll tell you, the big game, I tell you, Denver at New England is going to be a big football game, and I think this is a big game for Bill Parcells. He's been pumping these guys up all week. If we're going to go to the next level, we got to beat teams at the next level. Denver's a better team than right now. They're going to have to find a way to win.
Do you guys ever have to play a game in Denver in the cold weather?
You ever play one in RFK in warm weather?
I lost there, too. I've lost a lot of different places. But I think it's a huge game, not just for these two teams, but for the entire AFC, because if Denver wins here and moves to 10-1, nobody's going to catch these guys for home field advantage, and they won't lose a playoff game in Denver. Denver will be in the Super Bowl if they win here.
Your crystal ball away. We have an hour to go here.
Tap this.
Let's start with our big early game on this doubleheader Sunday, Denver at New England. Both of these teams thinking not just playoffs, but home field advantage and beyond. Here's a look at the best records in the AFC. Denver 2 games better than everybody else, and New England tied with Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and Kansas City. And with a report, Dick Enberg, Paul Maguire, and Phil Simms. Gentlemen.
Hello, Greg. 16-4 combined for these two teams. This is the quality game, a chance to define how serious they're going to be in the upcoming playoffs. Let's go back a year. Here in Foxborough, the Denver Broncos and John Elway, 2 touchdown passes, nearly 300 yards throwing for Elway, and a 37-3 shellacking of the Patriots. Parcells called it one of the 2 most embarrassing losses in his coaching career. So, Phil Simms, says Parcells, is there anything to this revenge factor business?
Oh, absolutely. And I tell you what, that and the fact that the Denver Broncos are 9-1 will get the attention of the New England players. And I know from personal experience that Bill Parcells went around to everybody in that locker room this week and challenged them. He said, you remember last year that guy crossing the line from you, he embarrassed you, and what are you going to do about it today? But the way you get revenge in this league is with your quarterback. And New England's quarterback, Drew Bledsoe, is playing very well. In the words of his head coach, Bill Parcells, he says, my boy has matured. He's going to have to play well today for them to win.
Bledsoe has grown up. Well, these two teams lead the AFC in scoring. And when you talk about the old AFC, of course, you immediately think of that face. But that aside, it could be the defense. In fact, last week, that's what helped these two teams to win.
Boy, is it amazing. 2 safeties saved the game. Tyrone Braxton here against Chicago knocks the ball down on 4th down, and then Willie Clay against the New York Jets does the same thing. The last play for the Jets, Willie Clay steps up to safety and knocks the ball down. But the New England Patriots have a terrible problem on defense, Dick. They are giving up over 400 yards in the last 7 games, over 300 yards passing in the last 7 games, and on almost 25 points. They do have 2 pretty good players. Willie McGinnis is a pass rusher, and then the 2 safeties, Malloy and Clay. But when we talk to Bill Parcells, and they say it every week, every coach does, we got to get to the passer, we've got to have turnovers. But the thing about it is they have to contain John Elway, and he knows it, because if they don't, he will get 400 yards today.
Well, all indicators lean toward the fact the loser today will be in the 20s in terms of points. With more on today's game, let's go down to the field and Jim Gray.
All right, thank you very much, Dick. Well, the critical left tackle for the Denver Broncos, Gary Zimmerman, who left last week in the game against Chicago because of a bad left shoulder, will start today. It will be 167 straight starts. In fact, Zimmerman has not missed a game, the only player in the NFL not to miss a game since 1986, but he is going to have surgery tomorrow, Monday, for his bad left shoulder. So he will play today because they need him very badly against Willie McGinnis, and then he will miss the game next week against Minnesota, ending that streak. That's the story from down here on the field. Let's send it back to New York and our studios with Greg Gumbel.
All right, Jim, thank you very much. You know, the one variable in this game, maybe you recall 2 weeks ago, John Elway felt that little twinge in his hamstring. He played and won last week without it. That always could be a factor. But Bill Parcells has to be thinking the same thing every other coach thinks when he goes up against the Broncos, Joe.
Well, he is right now. He's got a nightmare matchup. He's going to have to work his magic. He's looking at his 27th ranked defense going up against the #1 offense in the league. He's got to find a solution there somehow if he's going to win this ball.
Here's the solution. Keep the 27th ranked defense off the field. The way you do that is run the football. And you got to put a lot of pressure on Curtis Martin, and the offensive line has got to step up and do what Chicago did last week. Chicago dominated the second half of the game by running the football.
John Elway played without his hamstring last week?
Nah,
that's a good trick. How did he do that?
Because he had another one.
But I think one of the keys for this football game, remember Bill Parcells on draft day, he wanted a defensive lineman. I think today you're going to find out why. They've been having trouble stopping the run. Terrell Davis comes in here. If they can shut him down, they've got a shot in this one.
All right, Chris, the Patriots are tied for the AFC East lead with Buffalo. The Bills host Cincinnati today. The Bengals have won 3 straight since Bruce Coslett replaced Dave Shula. Beasley Reece has the report from Buffalo. Beasley.
Thanks a lot, Greg. I don't really know where I am. Is this Buffalo or am I in Cleveland? It's Cleveland Browns Fan Appreciation Day here at Rich Stadium. They made 4,000 tickets available. They recreated the dog pound, the most famous dog of them all. John Thompson is here with me. He's going to toss out the coin to start the contest. Now, there is a contest. Quarterback Jim Kelly of Buffalo told me yesterday that, you know, this is a big game. He thought early in the season it would be an easy win. But the Bengals are 3-0 under Bruce Coslett, averaging almost 30 points a game, 357 yards. I think the key is the play of rookie left tackle Willie Anderson. His assignment, if he chooses to accept it, block Bruce Smith. Now, Smith has won a lot of games right at the end, like this sack against Philly. Now, the Bengals are lucky. They're a passing team. They catch a break today because it's sunny and about 50. One other note, Bryce Pop, the fine rushing lineman for Buffalo, will not play because of injury. Greg, back to you.
All right, Beasley, we'll be passing the plate for Beasley in a little while. You have to understand, these are those former Cleveland Browns fans, still fans, but this is their one chance to go out and cheer against the Cincinnati Bengals. You know all about that.
Those people, they love me up there. They really, I'm glad to see them in Buffalo anywhere, but cheering against Cincinnati.
It's a different Bengals team.
It really is. What a difference Bruce Coslett has made with this football team, and I think Beasley hit on the key. Can they pass protect in this ball game? The other key being they've been having trouble against some of the top backs. Last week, Jerome Bettis really ran the football effectively against them, despite the fact they won that game. So, and we all know that Thurman Thomas, when he gets that running game going, they can be awfully tough.
Coaching change make that big a difference?
I'll tell you what, any kind of a change for a football team, this guy right here will testify, I will. When you change something on a football team, it excites everybody. Hey, they changed the coach. Man, those guys, they got a new enthusiasm right now. It's like a different team.
All right, let's go over to Ahmad, who I bet he wishes he was with Beasley.
No, I don't, actually. All right, still ahead, we'll talk about our 2 late games, Miami at Houston, a homecoming for Jimmy Johnson, and Baltimore at San Francisco. The mayor of San Francisco still trying to get his foot out of his mouth. And here's a look at the rest of the show.
Still ahead, after a 4-0 start, the Colts have really struggled. Jim Harbaugh talks about the tough times in Indy. We'll hear from the Oilers' Eddie George, who's establishing himself as one of the NFL's best running backs. George Seifert has won 2 Super Bowls for the 49ers, but is virtually unknown. He talks to Bob Costas. And the Denver Broncos are playing great defense, and Michael Dean Perry is a big reason why. He talks to Greg Gumbel.
A Dateline Survivor story you won't forget. Dateline Sunday.
Advance Auto Parts presents part number 23, the foot. Advance Auto Parts salespeople come equipped with 2 feet capable of propelling them out the door to your car.
Seems like I'm feeling every bump in the road.
Step by step, your car is inspected. With your problem understood, it's just a short walk back to the parts department. At Advance Auto Parts, no one sits around on part number 41. Advance Auto Parts. The best part is our people.
There's only one Little Joe's Autos. There's only one Little Joe's Sales Blitz. Little Joe's is celebrating with the greatest lineup of late model cars anywhere. For over 25 years, credit has never been a problem at Little Joe's. If you have $300, touchdown. Remember, you'll never get sacked by bad credit at Little Joe's Autos. With Little Joe at quarterback, you'll always drive away a winner. Like Joe says, I'd give them away, but my wife won't let me.
Your Hampton Walmart is now a Walmart Supercenter with all your holiday shopping needs under one roof. You'll love everyday low prices on toys, clothes, sporting goods, and now on meats, fresh bakery, pies, produce, and more. Visit the new grocery department for guaranteed low prices. During our grand opening, you could win a trip to the 1996 Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Register today at the special 7-Up and Mary Jane Bakery displays. Find all your holiday shopping needs under one roof at your new Walmart Supercenter in Hampton.
It's a test you can't afford to fail. Wednesday at 11.
The big matchup in Foxborough between the 9-1 Broncos and the 7-3 Patriots. Will McDonough is in Foxborough today with his weekly news and notes. Will?
Okay, Ma, let's start with the Seattle Seahawks, one of the hottest teams in the National Football League. Last night, they signed quarterback John Fries to a new contract of 2 years, but this has other ramifications. Now, I think they will not have any more interest in Jeff George like they did a month ago, and that they will now trade Rick Meyer, who has been their starting quarterback the last 3 or 4 years before the start of next season. Let's stay in Detroit. People want to know about Wayne Fontes. How long will he last as the Lions coach? Well, let's go back to what Bill Ford, the owner, said before the season started, that he anticipated this team should make the playoffs, and not only do that, but win games in the playoffs. So I think Fontes, when the team is eliminated later down the road this year, if that's the case, he will be fired. The NFL, the last 2 days, sent a message to all teams in the league saying, we don't want any tampering now that we're coming close to the end of the year. And this is because so many people anticipate there'll be a lot of firings at the end of the year. The note and the emphasis was about present head coaches, and I think they're thinking of Dennis Green, Marty Schottenheimer, and Dan Reeves in this category, who still have time left on their contract, but are rumored to be going to other places. I talked to Jerry Jones the other day. You know, their fine defensive end, Charles Haley, underwent back surgery. It looks as though he's going to be out for the season, but Jerry Jones says even though he may not come back, we are going to keep a spot on the roster for Haley and also for tight end Jay Novacek, just in case they are ready to come back and play the playoffs like they did last year. I spoke to George Seifert this week about Steve Young. He says Steve Young will not play this week, but in his heart believes he will be back next week. Young is such a great competitor. When he was hurt against Dallas last week, the team doctor was so afraid that he was going to try to get back in the game again that he hid Young's helmet in George Seifert's locker for the rest of the game. And for our final note, let's go to Buffalo. It's very unusual to see a veteran quarterback in the NFL walk around with a wristband on his wrist with plays on it. But that's what the Bills now having Jim Kelly doing, because they're going to use more formations than they ever have before in the past. Formations Kelly hasn't used that much, to try to spice up their offense, to go with the way that defense has been playing so great this year. Back to you, Ahmad.
All right, thanks, Will. One of our late games today is Baltimore at San Francisco. Prior to last week's loss to Dallas, the 49ers held a players-only meeting, which included Bill Walsh. Bob Costas asked Niners head coach George Seifert about it.
There were things that were discussed that probably would have been more difficult for me or for the players to respond if I were in the room, because, in fact, I am the head coach. Bill is this floating resource that I think everybody's kind of has a sense of and can turn to now.
A few years back, when there was talk of Bill Walsh returning in some assistance capacity, you resisted it.
Right.
But then this year, he returns as an administrative assistant, and it seemed that you welcomed it, or at least you were in accord. What was the difference?
Well, maybe it was just a confidence in myself. I felt at that time, a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, whatever it was, I hadn't totally established myself as the head coach of this football team. I think since that time that I have.
Bill has been very respectful of the boundaries, but still, again, outside San Francisco, when he comes back, it probably contributes to the perception that George Seifert, despite his impressive resume, doesn't wield the kind of influence within his organization that he might expect and that the fans might expect.
And that may very well be true, and it probably is true in certain sectors. But ultimately, I can't worry about that. That's not the thing that generates the energy within me. The energy has got to go into trying to win ball games. Can Bill Walsh help us win ball games? Do I take an ego hit every now and then? You bet I do. But I have my ways of dealing with it.
Well, we will bring you much more of Bob's conversation with George Seifert a little bit later. Let's go back to Greg.
All right, Ahmad, thanks. One of our early games is Seattle at Detroit. The Lions are in free fall at 4-6, losers of 4 straight. And as Will McDonough said earlier, Wayne Fontes may soon be looking for work. In direct contrast, the Seattle Seahawks are suddenly red hot. After starting 1-4, Seattle has won 4 of 5 to put itself in playoff contention. And quarterback John Fries is the single biggest reason for the turnaround. When he replaced Rick Meyer, the Seahawks started winning. Fries can sense the difference in Seattle.
It's a little easier to smile in between the meetings and in the hallway, and you talk to upper management, and you say hello. It's easier to say how are you doing, and obviously everybody's doing good when you win. Secretary's on up.
So Seattle's won 4 out of 5. They've won 3 in a row. Does John Fries get all the credit, Mike?
Well, I think he gets a lot of the credit, Greg, because he's not turning the football over. There's more consistency on this football team now than there was earlier. A lot of it's because of their defense. Defense is playing good. Terry Wooten came back. He's the leader of their defense. This is a football team that basically did the same thing last year. Started weak, came on strong, made a run at the playoffs. They look like they're going to do the same thing. And you got to give Dennis Erickson credit because he's kept his team together. But the big rumor in Seattle right now is that Paul Allen and his $12 billion is going to exercise his option to buy the Seahawks, keep him up there, but he's out looking for a general manager. He's talked to supposedly Billy Devaney, who's an assistant GM at San Diego, and then Rod Graves, who's a player personnel guy in Chicago. These names have come up. But there's a name that should come up, and he's the guy who was the real architect of the 1985 Chicago Bears, and that's Jerry Venezia, a guy I worked with in Chicago. He's looking for a job. He's the best guy for the job.
Who coached those Bears? No, never mind. The NFL and NBC continues in just a moment.
The Indianapolis Colts started the season 4-0, but it's been a nightmare ever since. Jim Harbaugh talks to Cris Collinsworth after these messages from your local station.
Tonight, it's alien adventures in...
That baby has taken control of us.
Babysitting.
He's my little bunny rabbit.
Hey, guys, it's feeding time. And only Third Rock. Then, an all-star Boston Common Thanksgiving with Paul Williams, Margot Kidder, and Patty Hearst.
It'll be like our own little dysfunctional family.
All new NBC tonight.
People ask us all the time, how can you offer a $500 guarantee to sell new Nissans for less than anybody else? Hard question. Easy answer. We pay less for Nissans, so you pay less for Nissans. See? It's simple. You want a new car? Remember just one thing, folks. You can't beat Bob. Hey, it's clearance time. Come save a bundle at Bob Cumper Nissan in Portsmouth and Newport News.
Hair loss. There are 7 degrees of hair loss that are measured by the Hamilton scale. Where do you fit on the scale? Hair loss affects approximately 40% of all men. It can be caused by many factors. Genetic pattern baldness accounts for nearly 95% of hair loss in men. It is believed that testosterone mixes with enzymes and other chemicals and forms DHT, which eventually cuts off the hair root's blood supply. Where there is no blood, there is no life. If you're tired of living with your hair loss, call the number on your screen now and receive free information about hair transplantation. Our experienced staff can offer you a proven solution that will get your hair back and will last for the rest of your life. We understand your concerns about hair loss, and we're ready to restore your youthful appearance and self-esteem. Call now, and let's get started today. Just think how you'll feel when you get back your own hair. Don't let hair loss take control of the way you feel any longer. Call now for free information.
Our poster princess winner revealed on the next Hard Copy.
Time for our weekly roundtable discussion of other games in the league today, beginning with Washington at Philadelphia. Both these teams are 7-3, both one game ahead of the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC East, but a little momentum difference in these two clubs. Washington, Joe, has lost 2 straight, and on the schedule after the Eagles come the 49ers and the Cowboys.
They lost the opener. Now they got to go win in Philadelphia. I hated that place. These guys beat up our mascot and Santa Claus on successive weekends. I mean, this is a tough crowd. And I would not want to be Washington going up there. Washington's given up over 1,000 yards on defense the last couple of weeks. And I'll tell you what, I think they got to give the ball to Terry Allen, hope he can run it out and keep him off the field.
All right, Chris, Chicago's at Kansas City. The Chiefs are coming off a big win against Green Bay last week.
Yeah, but I don't care about this game. They're beating up Santa Claus. Let's get to the important stuff. stuff. But the one thing you got to say about the Kansas City Chiefs, Marty Schottenheimer finally has those guys firing. They come out in the first quarter of the game against Green Bay, throwing bombs down the field. They're now blitzing, playing man-to-man coverage. They look like a whole different team last week. I think the Chiefs are going to go on a roll here.
They could have their work cut out for them. Chicago's won 2 or 3.
That's right, Chris. One game a season doesn't make. So let's understand that. The Bears will come out ready to play football. They ran the ball against a good Denver defense last week. They'll run it against this defense also. Their problem is they got too many injuries. But they're going to keep this game close. They're going to win it by a field goal at the end.
Ooh. One game a season doesn't make.
I like those things. I'll put that in my file.
I like Minnesota plays Oakland. We're not sure which of these teams is struggling. Both have managed to lose to Tampa Bay, but what we are sure of is that once Cris Collinsworth gets on the Raider bandwagon, they stumble and fall.
Thank you very much. I make one little mistake the entire season. One little mistake, and you kill me with that. If they never run the football, they'd be fine, though. They got all the running backs in the world.